Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, we will be diving deeper into Chapter 3. Yesterday, we talked about adding and subtracting integers, and now today, we are going to be talking about multiplying and dividing integers. So here, we're looking at the Chapter 3 packet that says negative numbers on top, and this is Investigation 3. So we completed Investigation 2 yesterday, and now we're looking at Investigation 3, multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So we're going to take a look at Lesson 3.1 to start. Here, the learning target is I can use rules about patterns to multiply integers. Now, after watching that Edpuzzle, we should have a good idea about how we can figure out what our answer is going to be when we're multiplying negative and positive numbers. And really, the rules here are pretty straightforward. If we have an even number of negative numbers in our problem, then our answer is going to be positive. And if we have an odd number of negative numbers in our problem, then our answer is going to be negative. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first problem here. How many negative numbers do I have in my problem? I have just one, negative 3. And since 1 is an odd number, then I have an odd number of negative factors or an odd number of negative numbers in my problem. Therefore, my answer is going to be negative. So negative 3 times 4. Here I would do 3 times 4 to get 12. And since there's one negative number in my problem, my answer is negative. All right, let's take a look at the second problem. I'm going to circle my negative numbers and then take a look at how many negative numbers do I have in my problem. Well, I have 1, 2 negative numbers. Is 2 an odd or an even number? 2 is an even number, so I have an even number of negative numbers in my problem. Therefore, my answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a green line underneath my answer because I know it has to be positive. And now from here, I'm going to do 3 times 4 to get 12. And we keep it positive because we have 2 negative factors, an even number of negative factors. All right, now we're looking at problem 2. This one, we have 3 numbers, but again, we're just taking a look at, do we have an odd number of negative numbers in our problem, or do we have an even number of negative numbers in our problem? So I'm going to go ahead and circle all of my negative factors in red, and we see right here that we just have one negative factor. 1 is an odd number, and so I go up here, and I look odd number of negative factors, my answer is going to be negative. And now I can just multiply like I normally would. So let's start off. 3 times 4 gives me 12, and I still have to multiply by that 2. 12 times 2 gives me 24. So my final answer here would be negative 24. Now we're looking at problem 5. Go ahead and try this one on your own. See if you can get this one correct. So pause the video. All right, now we're back. So let's take a look at how many odd or even numbers we have. Let's see, we have 1, 2 negative numbers. So since we have 1, 2 negative numbers, we have an even number of negative numbers in our problem. Since we have an even number of negative numbers in our problem, our answer is going to be positive. And then again, I can just go through and multiply like I normally would. So we have 2 times 3 to get 6. And then we still have to multiply it by that 4 to get 24. And again, our answer is going to be positive because we have an even number of negatives in our problem. All right, looking at problems 3 and 4, or 3 and 6, excuse me, they're a little bit more difficult because here we're looking for the missing number, the missing factor. And so in this case, we have to keep in mind that looking at our problem, we have to still keep those rules in mind, meaning if we have an even number of negative numbers, then we're going to have a positive answer. And in this case, we do have a positive answer. So that tells me is I need to have an even number of negative numbers. Here I have one negative number. So to have an even number of negative numbers, I'd have to have another negative number. So I'm going to go ahead and put my negative sign. And now I have to think about 10 multiplied by what gives me 90. 10 multiplied by what gives me 90? Well, this might be a little tough for me, so I'm actually going to work backwards. And I'm going to start with 90, and then think about what the opposite of multiplication is. That would be division. So I'm going to do 90 divided by my other factor of 10. And 90 divided by 10, let's say I have $90, and I'm dividing that between 10 of my friends. So they're each going to get $9. So negative 9 times negative 10 is going to give me positive 90. All right, go ahead and try this problem out. Think about the fact that we have a negative answer. How many negative numbers will we need in our main problem to have a negative answer? All right, do we need an even number of negatives, or do we need an odd number of negatives in our problem to get a negative answer? All right, so here we would need a negative number, right? Because then we'd have an odd number of negatives, which will give us that negative answer we're looking for. So what multiplied by 6 gives us 30? Again, I'm going to work backwards. 30 divided by 6, because that's the opposite of multiplication, and that gives me 5. So negative 5 times 6 equals negative 30. All right, now it is your turn to work on this. Here we have a workshop in part A, and here you're just going to determine if the following product will be positive or negative by circling your choice. So you don't even have to find the answer here. You just have to say if it's going to be a positive or negative answer. So let's do the first problem. Do we have an even or odd number of negatives? Remember, if we have an even number of negatives, then we're going to have a positive answer. If we have an odd number of negatives in our problem, then we're going to have a negative answer. So I'm going to go ahead and circle all my negative factors here. And here I notice I have 2 negative factors, 2 negative numbers. Therefore, 2 is even. And when we have an even number of negative factors, then our answer is going to be positive, because there are 2 negative numbers. Awesome. There's my reasoning. There's my answer. And now I can move on to the next set of problems. What I recommend doing here is circling in red all of your negative factors, and then maybe even circling in green all of your positive factors. That way you can quickly look at each problem and go, oh, I have an odd number of negative factors here. I have an, oh, real quick, I should know. Let's say we have a problem like problem number 4, where we don't have any negative factors. So we don't have an even number or an odd number of negative factors. Well, then we'd look at it like it's regular multiplication. So here it's 3 times 3. We know what that would give us, right? That would give us positive 9. And so therefore, we would say positive. All right? So then we're going to move on to part B, which is finding the product. This is just like the example problems we started with. All right? Again, you're looking at how many, if there's negative number of, if there's an even number of negative products or an odd number of negative products. All right, now we're looking at C, and this is determining the missing integer in the problem. All right, so here again, you might have to work backwards. And so to figure out what you have to multiply 12 by to get 36, you might have to start with 36 and divide by the factor you're given, in this case 12. What would that give you? And again, we have to pay attention to if our answer or our product is negative, what does that mean for the factors we have? And then we have part D, which is all about word problems. So we see where this applies in the real world. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at problem 1 here. It says the extraterrestrials, the ET team, are playing Jeopardy, and their score is 100. The team answers the next 4 50-point questions wrong, losing points. What is their score after answering the 4 questions wrong? Okay, so their score is 100, positive 100. And then the team answers the next 4 50-point questions wrong, losing points. So we are going to subtract 50. Actually, let's make this a multiplication problem so it sticks. So let's do 100 plus, and then here we say that they're answering 4 questions wrong, and for each question wrong that they answer, it's going to be negative 50. All right, so let's take a look here. If we have 4 times negative 50, then we're going to have an even number, an odd number of negative factors, right? We have just 1 here. So our answer is going to be negative 200. So now we do 100 plus negative 200, and we end up with negative 100. All right, now you're going to complete the final part here and then go to your exit slip, and you're going to fill out exit slip for 3.1 and then move on to 3.2. All right, thank you very much.